Welcome to Biology Made Easy. Today we are discussing roots, their morphology, and structural adaptations. Welcome. Root is the portion of the plant that ends with a root cap, has no nodes or leaves. So we look at this structure. It's an underground stem. It has scales. Those are the brownish bits. Then it has a node here, a node here, a node here, a node here, a node, and then leaf. Now, here is a root. It has no nodes. It has only branches, lateral roots. We come to this one. This is an underground stem here. It's a comb. These are its nodes, not well seen. Here is a root. It doesn't have any node. It doesn't have any leaf. So that is simply what a root is. Now, today we will look at roots classification. We will look at primary roots, that's a true root, secondary or lateral roots, adventitious roots, taproot system, fibrous root system, and aerial roots, buttress, stilt, prop, brace, climbing or clasping, hanging, pneumatophores. This will be the lesson for today, part 1. So, true root or primary root, what is it? It's a root that develops from the radicle of the embryo. Here is a cowpea seed. This is the radicle. This is the plumule. So a root that develops from this, the radicle, is a true or primary root. So we come here, this is a true or primary root. This root developed from the radicle. If you go to the monocotyledons, maize seed, this root growing out of the radicle is a true or primary root. So what is a secondary or lateral root? These are roots that appear after the primary root comes in. All right? They come in quickly after the primary root appears. Here are lateral or secondary roots on this dicot roots. Well, we will look at monocot roots and how their lateral roots are soon. But in the meantime, after talking about primary roots and secondary or lateral roots, let us discuss adventitious roots. Adventitious roots are roots that grow from other parts of the plant other than the radicle. Any root that is not growing from the radicle is adventitious, and they are roots that can grow from the node of the stem. This is a stem, and this is a root. This is a root growing from the node of the stem, right? Or there are roots that can grow from parts of the leaf. So this is a bryophyllum leaf. The margin of the leaf here, the leaf margin, are buds. So this area has a bud. There's another bud here. Buds are the margin of bryophyllum leaf. These buds can sprout out roots. So we see this is the bud. There's a bud here that has sprouted a plant, and we turn it upside down, and we see these roots grown from buds on the leaf. All these, any roots that grow not from the radicle, are adventitious roots. So we want to now consider the two major types of roots, taproot system and the fibrous root system. Now, the taproot system are found in dicotyledonous plants, and they are roots that grow from the radicle, one large root, and quickly smaller lateral roots. So we have here this root growing from the radicle. It produces the primary roots and quickly lateral or secondary roots. What happens therefore in the monocots? Well, in the monocots, you have a root growing from the radicle, that is the primary root, grows quickly, and very quickly a plumule develops, and then at the base of the plumule that is developing into a shoot, very quickly adventitious roots grow from the base of the plumule that is growing into a shoot. So very quickly you have the primary roots. You can see in this one, the primary root is the big one, and adventitious roots that grew from the base of the plumule, which has become the shoot. That's the shoot. The adventitious root grew from the base of this plumule, and very soon in fibrous roots, you have a cluster of even-sized roots. That's what happened. But it started as a primary root, but quickly overtaken by adventitious roots. So finally, you have all of them grown even-sized and almost even length roots. That is the fibrous root system. Now, the dicot root system, yes, the primary roots, that's the taproot, continues to grow bigger and bigger, and the lateral roots are also growing, right? Now, the advantages and the disadvantages, both of them have. Taproot system, the advantages, these roots can grow deeper and deeper into the soil and get into deeper layers of soil to absorb water and mineral salts for the plant. At the same time, because the taproot system undergoes secondary growth, this root can grow thicker and thicker to support the weight of the plant. That is advantage. Now, the fibrous roots also have advantages. You see, the roots grow plenty and they grow shallow. They are found in the top soil, all right? Very shallow. They spread, and so even small amount of rainfall or dew, the roots can tap it. So it's advantageous to have these plants in places that rainfall is not plenty, like savanna or deserts, so they can absorb water effectively. The roots also plenty and widespread on the surface of the soil, bind soil particles together effectively to check soil erosion. But well, there are also disadvantages because the roots are very shallow. The plants, if they are large like plantains, easily fall off with the slightest wind. Well, any disadvantages in taproots? Yes, the taproot system, because the root goes very deep into lower layers of the soil, and there are very few roots at the top soil. In droughts, if this root doesn't go deep into the water table to absorb water, then the plant will suffer because it can't absorb dew or very little rain, and so they die. Good. Now, we want to see other roots, aerial roots. And aerial roots are roots that develop on the surface of the ground. This page, we put down notes for you to look at, for us to go through quickly. Then we will go other pages to look at the plants well. So just a very small illustration here of a buttress root. Then we have stilt roots, prop roots. Now we go to brace roots. And notice we said prop roots are also known as brace roots. Brace roots are also known as banyan. We'll explain banyan when we look at the photos of brace roots. Then we come to climbing or clasping roots. Then we come to hanging roots. Then we have pneumatophores or breathing roots. Now, after having notes on these aerial roots, let's look at how they are and how they hold on. Here we have buttress roots. Roots that are found enlarged at the base of the trunk. Here is a very good one in cyber, kipok. Look at all these extensive things are roots. And you have others that are not shaped like that. They are spread on the surface of the soil. See here, they expand from here, the base, and spread on the surface of the soil. Also buttress, even if it's not as big as the kipok. Now we come here and look at all these are also buttress, all right? Look at them coming this way at the base of the trunk and spreading to hold the stem. or the trunk. So these are buttress, and they are found in trunks that the taproots are not deep enough or strong enough. So we have buttress roots here, buttress roots. Even this one is a small tree, but it has its buttress roots. But look at this big tree here. It doesn't have any buttress roots, meaning that the taproot goes deep and strong to hold the trunk. Look at this one too. Very thick trunk and seemingly no buttress roots found because of thick and large taproot deep down. So we get onto stilt roots here. Stilt roots, you see how the roots are arched. Look at it. Arched branch roots supporting the trunk of the stem. And these are found in swampy areas. So mangroves, all right, holding the plant. Well, that's about stilt roots. We will go on to other roots like prop roots. Here we have roots these are prop roots, roots growing from the stem. This is a maize plant, it's a monocot. The roots are from intercalary meristems at the note. Here we have prop roots here, holding the stem in place. Prop roots are also known as brace roots, but here we have proper brace roots here, and brace roots are known as banyan. Banyan is a tree that has the ability to develop aerial roots from branches and trunks. So you see, here is a branch of this tree. All these are roots that have grown thick as trunks and go deep into the soil to hold onto the heavy branches and the tree. So these are banyan brace roots. Look at this trunk here. All these are roots that have grown. They look like stems. No, but they are roots that have thickened, gone through secondary growth, thickened like stems, holding onto the branches. And they grow deep into the soil, and so they hold onto the branches in place, hold the trunk in place, and yet absorb water and mineral salts too from the soil. Very neat. Now let's look at how these banyan roots develop. They start as very tiny roots. Look at this one. Very tiny roots growing from this ficus tree. All these are roots growing. So banyan, they can sprout out roots from trunks or branches. And look at how the roots are. Look at the detailed structure of it, all right? Close up, look at it. Look at the tip of the roots. So you can see these are roots. All these are roots, but these roots will grow thick. Like we see here, look at it. They grow as time goes on. The roots that are tiny are growing thick, and they are growing downwards, thick and downwards. But the tiny parts are still at the base here. They grow and grow thick and tough. Look, all these are roots. These are roots that has grown like a stem. They wind round the stem, but they go deep down here. Deep down, here is the main trunk. And all these are roots, all right, that have grown thick and around to support the stem. And also deep down to collect mineral salts and water for the plant. So you see here, all these are roots that have grown like stems, thickened, and they've grown deep go into the soil to also absorb mineral salts and water, as well as anchoring the branches and the trunk in place. Very neat. Well, we want to still see this banyan. This one is a cut one. You see the cut, and look at the structure. This one is roots that became like a stem. Roots, 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 roots. All of them supporting a stem. Look at them here. All these are roots, roots that have grown, and look at the section of them. Well, that's interesting about banyan and brace roots. Well, we've had enough of this banyan, interesting though, but let's look at other roots, climbing or clasping roots. These ones are roots that grow on weak stems. This is a stem. Look at these. These are roots growing to hold the support. This is a wall. So they are weak. They grow on weak stems and grow onto the support to anchor the plants on their supports. They are very tiny. Look at these, very tiny, but they have stuck because they have adhesive structures or secretions and sticky parts that hold the substratum. Now we have another plant here. This is also a weak stem. Look, all these are climbing or clasping roots. This is a wall that these roots are holding to hold their weak stem onto the support. Very neat. Now we look at this one. This is a tree. It has a lot of climbers on it. And looking at it very carefully, look at this region here. You see these ones are clasping roots. They are holding onto the support. And the support is part of a branch of another and holding so that the stem can hold on. If we look at it very carefully, it looks like here too are clasping roots. This is a stem, weak stem, and is holding onto this tree with these roots, all right? So if you walk through the gardens, you look around, you will see a lot of roots that are holding on other supports. So we would also go from climbing to look at hanging roots. Roots that are climbing or clasping will usually have a hanging root also around. So this is a hanging root. The root hangs in the air. This 1, 2 that had this clasping or climbing roots. Look at this hanging roots. They have a hanging root. This is a hanging root here. A lot of hanging roots. This here is the hanging roots. These ones are very big, thick hanging roots. So the hanging roots, they hang in the air. They absorb moisture, all right, in the atmosphere. So these are also hanging roots. Here, hanging roots. See the stem? The stem is weak. It has hanging roots. It will have clasping or climbing roots somewhere. But the hanging roots are very, very, very obvious here. Now, these hanging roots, they are spongy. They are spongy, so they are light in weight. They will not weigh the stem, all right? Beside that, they are spongy and have greenish or whitish structure around. These are roots that are broken. Look at these. They are greenish when they are young because they have a tissue called velamen that is around the roots. This tissue called velamen is absorptive. It's able to absorb moisture from the atmosphere. Or very little rain that falls will fall on the roots and they will be absorbed. So you see, broken here, the section of it, the greenish part is velamen, and the whole root is spongy so that water and mineral salts and even air can easily move through. And then also is spongy, it's not heavy to weigh the stem down. Very neat. We will look at velamen in orchids. These are hanging roots of the orchid. Look at this greenish white structure or tissue around it is velamen. They are absorptive tissue that will absorb moisture in the atmosphere or very little rain. And because they are spongy, they have large air spaces. They also will make the roots be able to pass gases around very easily, even as it passes water and mineral salts absorbed from the atmosphere into the plant. Very neat hanging roots. Now, hanging roots are not only found in land plants, they are also found in muddy, swampy areas. This is a mangrove. This is the stem or the trunk. All these are parts of the trunk or stem or branches, and these are hanging roots. All these are hanging roots. A lot of hanging roots, spongy and can absorb atmospheric moisture, can also pass gases around easily. That is hanging roots. So, well, let's also leave these hanging roots and look at pneumatophores. Breathing roots, they also are found in mangroves. Here is water, the sea. Here is swampy area. And these growing here are roots. All these are roots. They grow from roots from this stem. This stem has its major roots in the mud or water here, and these roots have grown from the roots that is in the ground. So they are branches from the roots from the ground, and they are called breathing roots because they have ability to absorb air and to pass air out. That is gaseous exchange. Now we have these pneumatophores here. It's another shot of pneumatophores. If you look at them very carefully, you'll see they are bumpy. They are bumpy. They look bumpy. And the bumps are areas called lenticels. Lenticels, they are holes. These ones too look bumpy, isn't it? Well, so the lenticels are holes. We want to look at lenticel close here. These are the pneumatophores. Here is one of them. Here's a lenticel. It's a hole. Lenticel, lenticel, lenticel. So there are a lot of lenticels all on these pneumatophores. And a picture of the lenticel, I've been able to just draw some pictures of it. These are lenticels on the pneumatophore. Remember some lessons ago, we looked at the lenticel in woody trunks. And the lenticel is just a hole in which gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, will move in and then serve the tissues of the plant. And then any gases produced, whether oxygen or carbon dioxide gases, they will move out. So that's a lenticel. And pneumatophores have a lot of them to take air in, air out, gaseous exchange. Very neat. This brings us to the end of our lesson today. Well, that is part 1. In part 2 of roots morphology, we will look at contractile roots, suckers of parasitic plants, hostorial roots of parasitic plants, mycorrhizal roots, root tubers, and swollen taproots. Then in part 3, we will look at all these roots very, very quickly, all these roots, and then talk about structural adaptations of roots. So, till we meet in our next lesson, thank you very much and goodbye.